Ever feel like your voice just gets completely lost in all the political noise?
Oh, tell me about it.
It's like all the decisions that really impact our lives are made by people who are so far removed.
Yeah,
They just don't get it.
right.
Well, today we're diving into something that might actually flip that script. Citizen assemblies.
Ooh, interesting.
So imagine this. Ordinary people, not politicians,
Right.
coming together to actually brainstorm solutions for some really tough local issues.
And the really fascinating thing is these aren't just talk fest. We're heading to Bend, Oregon for this one,
Okay.
where a citizen assembly actually tackled a really, really complex problem, youth homelessness.
Wow.
And they came up with some really surprising recommendations, some of them potentially game-changing.
That's awesome. So we're drawing from a deep dive in the Chronicle of Philanthropy published with the Associated Press to unpack all this.
Awesome source.
So why should people care about what happened out in Bend?
Well, I think it shows us a new way to engage with democracy, and potentially you can use these methods in your own backyard, so to speak.
Right, exactly.
And it's not just about feel-good vibes either. Some really big names funded this assembly. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Omidyar Network.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, so they clearly see some real potential here.
Yeah, they're putting their money where their mouth is. Okay, so let's paint the picture of Bend, Oregon. It's a beautiful place. I mean, you've got stunning scenery,
Oh, yeah.
booming economy. But like a lot of places, there's something bubbling under the surface.
Yeah, this problem with homelessness.
Yes.
And it's hitting young people especially hard.
Really hard.
It's almost a microcosm of what's happening across the country, actually. You have this picture-perfect image.
Yeah.
But the reality is over 1,800 people were homeless in Deschutes County in a recent count.
Wow.
And that's more than double the number just a few years ago.
Double. Oh my gosh, that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
That really highlights the urgency of the situation. Okay, so how did this assembly actually work?
Okay, so they didn't just round up some random folks and hope for the best.
Right.
This was meticulously designed. They
Okay.
made sure that the assembly itself was a mirror of Bend.
Oh, interesting.
So it was diverse in age, race, gender, you name it.
Wow.
You had acupuncturists sitting next to elk hunters, house cleaners brainstorming with retired riverboat pilots. It was a real slice of the community.
That is so cool. I love that. You get such an incredible mix of perspectives. You would never find that in your typical town hall meeting.
Oh, absolutely not.
No way.
And it wasn't just some quick weekend retreat either. These folks were really immersed in the issue.
Oh, wow.
They spent days listening to experts, sharing their own stories, really digging deep to try to find solutions.
That's amazing. And speaking of stories, one voice that really stood out in all of this was Eliza Wilson. Now, Eliza isn't just some expert who studied homelessness.
No, not at all.
She's lived it.
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk about her experience a little bit?
So she actually became homeless when she was 5 years old.
5 years old. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, just imagine that.
Wow.
When she was 15, she ended up finding refuge at a youth shelter and was eventually able to turn her life around.
It's incredible that she was willing to share something so personal with this group of people.
Yeah.
I mean, did her story change the way that other people in that assembly viewed homelessness?
Absolutely. One participant, Ken, initially thought, oh, homelessness is just a personal choice. It's a lack of effort. But after listening to Eliza, his perspective changed totally.
Yeah.
He started to understand all those systemic issues that are at play here, all those hidden struggles that people face.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the power of firsthand experience. You could read all the statistics you want,
Right.
but hearing someone's story really hits home in a way that nothing else does.
Totally. And, Eliza's story wasn't the only one that sparked these aha moments.
Right.
People came in with their own assumptions, but the assembly really forced them to confront those assumptions, see things from a different angle.
So what were some of those other insights that came out of the assembly? Besides those personal stories, what else did they uncover?
Well, they started to identify some of the root causes of youth homelessness, right?
Yeah.
Not just the surface stuff.
Okay.
They talked about flaws in the foster care system,
Right.
the risk of sexual abuse for young people without stable housing,
Wow.
and the unique challenges faced by LGBTQ youth, too.
That's heavy stuff.
It is.
It sounds like they weren't afraid to tackle those really difficult and often overlooked aspects of this problem.
Exactly. And they weren't interested in just finding a Band-Aid solution.
Right.
They wanted to really understand the complexity of the problem so they could propose things that would actually create lasting change.
That makes a lot of sense. So this brings up kind of a crucial question. How do we ensure these great ideas actually translate into action? They've come up with these amazing recommendations, but then what? What happens next?
Well, That's where things get a little bit tricky. The success of this whole thing really hinges on political will.
Right.
Some of the changes they propose, like adjusting how police interact with homeless youth, could be implemented pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing some of those bigger, more systemic changes, like actually reforming the foster care system, would be a much tougher battle.
Oh, absolutely. It takes time and resources and buy-in from multiple agencies.
Right.
But, think of it this way. The Assembly created a roadmap, a blueprint for action.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah. And now it's up to local officials to actually step up and make it happen.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's at least some momentum building. The article mentioned that several local officials, including County Commissioner Phil Chang, were pretty impressed by the Assembly and its recommendations.
Yeah, Chang even said that it created this, quote, social license for officials to take action. That's huge because it means the community is ready for change and expects its leaders to act on these recommendations.
That's great, but let's be real. Not everyone is on board with this, right?
Right.
There are bound to be people who resist some of these changes.
Of course. The article mentions a more conservative commissioner, Tony DeBone. He expressed some concerns about relaxed drug laws contributing to homelessness.
Okay.
And he believes, really, that economic solutions are key.
Yeah, and while those economic factors are really important, doesn't focusing only on those risks, overlooking those deeper systemic issues like we talked about with the foster care system?
That's a great point.
I mean, we just heard how that played a role in Eliza's story.
Absolutely.
And it highlights the importance of really considering all these different perspectives. The Assembly provided this platform for diverse viewpoints, even ones that clashed.
Right.
But what I find encouraging is that despite DeBone's reservations, he's still open to hearing what the Assembly proposes.
He is, yeah.
So there's a glimmer of hopes there, isn't there? It suggests that even in this really politically divided landscape that we're living in, there's still potential for common ground, for actually working towards solutions.
Yeah, I think so. And, that's one of the things that makes this whole citizen assembly model so compelling. It offers us this way to bridge those ideological divides and work towards solutions that actually benefit the entire community.
So zooming out a bit, what are some of the big takeaways from this? What does this deep dive into citizen assemblies tell us?
I think one of the key takeaways is that these assemblies can be a really powerful tool for community engagement and problem solving.
Okay.
It's about bringing people together, giving them a voice, empowering them to actually shape their own communities.
It's like moving beyond those frustrating town hall meetings, where everyone's shouting at each other and nothing actually gets accomplished.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Citizen assemblies offer a more structured and kind of deliberative approach.
Yeah.
They encourage dialogue, listening, and finding common ground.
And the fact that the Bend Assembly actually led to these concrete recommendations, and those are now being seriously considered by local officials?
Yeah.
That's a huge win, right? It proves that this isn't just some feel-good exercise.
Yeah.
It can lead to real, tangible change.
Right.
Now, imagine a citizen assembly happening in your own community.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the issues that keep you up at night.
Right.
Could this be a way to actually address those persistent problems that traditional politics has just completely failed to solve?
It's a great question. Think about it. What are the challenges that your community faces? Education, healthcare, climate change, infrastructure. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Could a citizen assembly be the key to actually unlocking some of these solutions that have eluded us for years?
And the other thing that I think is really interesting about the assembly in Bend is that they didn't just focus on those quick fixes.
No, they didn't.
They were thinking long term.
Yeah.
They were thinking about creating lasting change.
Absolutely.
And they proposed this whole range of solutions, from the immediate actions to some more ambitious long-term goals.
It's about investing in the future, right?
Yeah.
Creating a community where everyone has the opportunity to actually succeed.
Exactly. And it's not just about government action either.
No, it's not.
It's about community engagement.
Absolutely. A lot of the recommendations from the Assembly included increased collaboration between government agencies, nonprofits,
Right.
and, most importantly, the people who are directly impacted by these issues.
It's like recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating this better future.
We do.
And we don't have to just sit around and wait for politicians to act or rely solely on experts to solve these problems.
No, we don't.
We have the power, right?
Yeah,
To come together, to share our ideas, to create solutions that actually work for everyone.
I think that's right.
It's inspiring, right? Like, we don't have to be passive bystanders.
Right.
We could roll up our sleeves and be part of the solution. But I'm curious, could this work for even bigger issues?
Yeah.
More deep-rooted issues.
Totally.
What if we used citizen assemblies to tackle things like racial injustice or economic inequality? I mean, could you imagine?
No, that's where things get really interesting, right?
Yep,
Could citizen assemblies be a force for, truly transformative change,
right.
dismantling those systemic barriers that have held us back for so long?
Imagine a citizen assembly task with reimagining the criminal justice system,
Wow.
or coming up with policies to close the wealth gap, or creating a truly equitable education system.
It would require a serious commitment, wouldn't it, to confronting some uncomfortable truths,
Yeah.
challenging our own beliefs, being open to these radical new ways of doing things.
But, I mean, if we're serious about creating a more just and equitable society, those are the conversations we need to be having,
I
right?
do.
And maybe, just maybe, citizen assemblies can provide us the space to do that in a way that's actually productive
Yeah.
and actually leads to change.
I think they create that framework, for respectful dialogue, deep listening,
Yeah.
collaborative problem solving. It's not about pointing fingers or shutting down opposing viewpoints. It's about actually working together to find solutions that benefit everyone.
But here's the thing. We can't just rely on good intentions, right?
No.
We need leadership that's actually willing to listen to these assemblies
Yeah.
and take action based on their recommendations.
Yeah, you're totally right. Without that commitment from those empowered, these assemblies just risk becoming another talking shop, another,
Right.
Box to check off.
But when leaders actually embrace this collaborative spirit, when they're willing to actually share power and give citizens a real voice, that's when we can see real transformation.
I think so too.
So let's say I'm listening to this right now, and I'm thinking, this sounds great, but what can I do?
Right.
Like, where do I even start to support this movement?
Well, I think the first step is awareness, right?
Right.
Talking about these assemblies with your friends, your family, your neighbors.
Okay.
Share information about the successful examples, and just get those conversations going about how this model could be used to address issues in your own community.
So it's about planting those seeds.
It is getting people excited about this new way of doing things.
Yeah.
And if you have the opportunity to actually participate in a citizen assembly yourself,
Yeah.
jump at it.
Yeah.
Come prepared to listen, to learn, and to share your own unique perspective. Don't underestimate the power of your own voice in these settings.
We often think about these big solutions requiring these massive government programs or sweeping legislation.
Right.
But what if the answer lies in something smaller,
Yeah.
more grassroots?
Maybe.
What if it's about everyday people, just coming together,
Yeah.
sharing their ideas,
Yeah.
working collaboratively
Yeah.
to find those solutions?
I think it's about shifting the power dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing that we don't have to wait for someone else to fix things. We have the power to create that change ourselves.
And that brings us right back to the citizen assembly model, right?
Right.
It's not about creating some sort of shadow government
Right.
or replacing elected officials. It's about providing them with a more informed, more nuanced, and more representative set of recommendations.
It's almost like building this bridge
Yeah.
between the people and their representatives. And it's a bridge built on trust, dialogue, and this shared commitment to finding solutions that work for everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to shift gears for a sec.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the potential of these citizen assemblies,
Right.
but, let's be realistic. Are there any downsides?
Sure.
Are there any risks that we need to be aware of?
Well, yeah, like any system, citizen assemblies have their limitations.
Okay.
I think one concern is the risk of capture, right?
Right.
Of special interest groups, kind of manipulating the process to push their own agendas.
Yeah, makes sense.
So transparency and accountability are really crucial.
It's like anything, right?
Yeah.
Even with the best intentions,
Yeah,
things can go sideways
they
if
can.
we're not careful.
There also needs to be a really robust process for selecting participants
Right.
and making sure the assembly truly represents the diversity of the community.
Right, because if certain voices are excluded or marginalized, the assembly just loses its legitimacy.
It does.
And we can't forget about the follow-through.
No,
Even if they come up with these, brilliant recommendations, what happens next?
exactly.
Those recommendations have to be taken seriously by those in power.
Yeah, it's not enough to just listen and nod your head, There needs to be real action, real accountability.
Otherwise, it's all just talk.
Yeah,
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
we have.
We've explored the potential of citizen assemblies, the challenges, the opportunities,
Yeah.
but ultimately, why should you care about all of this?
Because this is about you reclaiming your voice,
Yeah.
your power. It's about recognizing that you have something valuable to contribute,
Yeah.
even if you're not a politician or an expert.
It's about demanding more from our democracy,
It is.
not settling for the status quo.
It's about believing that we can actually create a better future together.
Yes.
A future where our voices are heard, our communities thrive, and our democracy truly represents the will of the people.
So here's our final thought-provoking question for you.
Okay.
What if citizen assemblies weren't just a nice idea? What if they were a necessary evolution of our democracy? What if they became the norm?
Right.
A routine way for communities to tackle those tough issues and actually find common ground.
What kind of future could we create if we embraced this model? If we unleashed that collective wisdom and energy of our communities?
That's something worth thinking about.
It is.
And maybe, just maybe, it's something worth fighting for.